When a parent who excels in a specific field or talent, they may have a child who may inherit similar skills, and this week's character is a prime example. He is the son of the hero of the Bionis, the founder of House Ortiz. This is the story of Nikol. Designed by Matsugu Saito, and voiced by Musamune Ono and Joe Jameson, wearing a sleeveless blue sweater, black shorts with several pockets, and a pair of goggles, Nikol, or Nikoru in Japan, while originally a Homs from the Bionis, is a Kevesi human soldier from the Kingdom of Keves, who excels in mechanical engineering. He has a calm and quiet personality, but when the subject of machinery is brought up, Nikol shows a more energetic side.
Fusing a Kevesi and Agnian Faranis together? This is inconceivable.
I hear there's a Mobius who researches Faranis flame clocks, developing experimental tech and what have you. Might be his handiwork that this was based on.
Yeah, but you know what?
No, what?
It must have taken a lot of engineering to make it work. I'm really curious. Wish we could bring it back for analysis.
Uh-oh. Here comes Shulk's fatal weakness.
I agree, Shulk, sir. I want to study it too.
Don't encourage him.
When in battle, he uses a weapon known as the Variable Backpack, a pair of large mechanical arms that are attached to his back that bear similarity to the prehensile ears of the Nopon. Prior to the events of Xenoblade 3, Nikol was born in the world of the Bionis, and would later be integrated into Origin, a giant metal ark that would protect the souls of people and societal knowledge when the Bionis and the world of Allrest came into contact with one another. However, Origin would be corrupted by the digitized souls of the people within it, and from their fears of an uncertain future and their desire for stability, the game's overarching villain, Zed, was born. Zed would hijack Origin and at the intersection of the worlds, rather than preserving the worlds as planned, both the Bionis and Allrest would be merged into one called Ionios. Zed would then go on to shape Ionios into one defined by an endless cycle of death and rebirth that he would call the Endless Now. As part of the Origin system, Nikol would be repeatedly reborn in Ionios as a soldier of the Kingdom of Keves. Eventually, an incarnation of Nikol would be assigned to the Kevesi colony, Colony 5, and for unknown reasons, Nikol would be unable to summon a blade, resulting in him being bullied by others in his colony. In order to be able to fight, Nikol built himself a pair of large mechanical arms attached to a backpack. When Colony 5 came into conflict against the Agnian colony, Colony Gamma, everyone in Colony 5 except Nikol were killed. Shortly after, Nikol and Glimmer, the only survivor of Colony Gamma, began trying to kill each other in a battle to the death. However, their fight was interrupted by Matthew, a survivor of the city, who used his Gauntlet's Ouroboros powers to stop the fight, resulting in Nikol and Glimmer becoming Ouroboros themselves. The two soldiers then tried to kill Matthew and his partner A, but were easily defeated. But at that moment, the Council's QNR appeared, but were quickly killed by A, who then destroyed two Faranis flame clocks, machines that absorbed life, freeing Nikol and Glimmer from the flame clock system. However, Glimmer was unable to accept the fact that she was no longer an Agnian soldier, and runs away in search of a colony. Matthew, A, and Nikol would discover her to be gone the next morning, and proceed to go after her. The party would eventually find Glimmer and series' first protagonist Shulk, being attacked by Council W and the Colony Edda Faranis, where they would join forces to fight. Later in the fight, W would summon a Kevesi Faranis and fuse it with himself and the Agnian Faranis, and proceeded to fire a beam at Glimmer, with Nikol attempting to take the hit for her. Fortunately, Rex, Glimmer's father, arrived and blocked the attack. After W's defeat, the party would rest for the night where Nikol would discuss the principles of a machine's use with Shulk, and would help Shulk fix his robotic arm squeaking problem, not knowing that the man he was talking to was his own father. Later that same night, Nikol would have a small heart-to-heart with Glimmer, which would be the beginning to what would become a close friendship. The next day, the group would head to Colony 9, the base of operations for Shulk and Rex's organization, the Liberators. While at the colony, Shulk would have a talk with Nikol at Outlook Park, and while not saying her name, would tell him that it was thanks to Fiora that Shulk was still around, then quietly add that it was also thanks to her that Nikol was there as well, and offers to bring Nikol back and share sandwiches with him, which Nikol gladly accepted. Shortly after an encounter with Niall, Matthew's sister, and the cold, logical Alpha, Rex and Shulk would explain to the party about the history of their original worlds and how Ionios came to be, with Nikol, alongside Glimmer, deciding that he wanted to fight alongside everyone else in order to defeat Alpha. However, Rex and Shulk, believing the two of them weren't strong enough to fight against Alpha, denied their request. Looking to boost their Ouroboros powers, the Nopon Riku informs them that they needed some kind of trigger to increase their power. But in order to achieve this trigger, Rex and Shulk volunteered to fight Glimmer and Nikol to help them activate it. And though the two struggled a bit against the two legendary heroes, Nikol and Glimmer were able to unlock more of their Ouroboros powers to defeat the duo, and with the victory, earned the chance to fight Alpha. When the party reached Origin, Alpha would try to convince the party that the lives of Kevis and Agnes were things of the past, and that the future had no need for them. But the party refused to accept his goals, with Shulk and Rex recalling that Klaus trusted them with the future and engaged Alpha in combat, where Alpha would then unleash his true form, that of a large humanoid figure with an empty mask-like face. In a final effort to defeat Alpha, Council N, Matthew's great-grandfather, who had joined Zed's forces, granted Matthew the powers of his Sword of the End, instructing him to combine it with his Ouroboros gauntlets, which began to emit green energy due to them containing the core crystal of Numa, unlocking the power of Ouroboros to Nikol and the other heroes, resulting in Alpha's defeat. But immediately after the battle, Shulk, Rex, and A began to fade, revealing that without Alpha, Origin required a new avatar to keep Ionios stable, which the three of them would fill the role. Hearing this, Nikol and Glimmer begged them not to, pleading that there had to be another way, but with Rex's assurance, promised them that they would see them all again when the worlds were restored. As a final gift, Shulk would grant Nikol his life force so that he could live out the rest of his life naturally, freeing him from Origin's reincarnation cycle, after which Rex, Shulk, and A would step forward into a large rift, telling the party that they would be waiting for them at the far edges of time. Sometime during the reconstruction of the city, Nikol, with the assistance of Riku, would begin working on powering up the Ouroboros stone, with the goal of enabling them to use the power of Ouroboros whenever they wanted to. While working, a problem would occur that caused smoke to expel from the stone, causing the two to start arguing. Glimmer would then arrive to inform them of Matthew's send-off, who would leave the city in the hands of his friends, where Nikol would eventually found House Ortiz. When the city was rebuilt, a statue of Nikol would be placed in the memorial hall alongside the statues of Matthew, Glimmer, Shulk, Rex, and Aiel as the city's liberatrix, stating, "In memory of the founder of House Ortiz and the city's liberator, a Kevesi soldier. This founder was released from the flame clock system by the other founders and henceforth spent every last ounce of his energy for the cause, to liberate the city as one of the first Ouroboros. With surpassing skill in mechanical engineering, the founder fought not with a blade, but with a weapon of his own fabrication. He was also responsible for laying the foundations of all the mechanical systems supporting the city to this day. Following the fight against Mobius, he poured the remainder of his days into rebuilding the city, before finally perishing at the age of 80 years, though how he attained that feat despite his origins as a Kevesi soldier remains unexplained." All descendants of House Ortiz wear an eye patch adorned with the house's pattern when adventuring outside the city. The emblem depicted on the patches is the variable backpack. It wouldn't be until nearly 1,000 years later that Nikol would be reunited with his family after Zed's defeat, and the worlds of the Bionis and Alres were restored and made compatible so they could combine successfully and safely. And Nikol will be there to help build a better future and fix its problems, just like his parents before him. Interesting facts. Nikol's eyes are depicted as blue in one of his official illustrations, even though they are depicted as green both in-game and in another version of the same illustration. This was presumably an error which was corrected by Masatsugo Saito for one illustration, but not the other. And his jumping animation is almost identical to Shulk's jumping animation in Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. And that is the story of Nikol. What did you think of his character and his inclusion to the series? Let me know in the comment section down below, and I'll see you in the next one. And if I don't, well...
Oh dear, I'm not really feeling that.